On tonight's show, what we're mainly talking about is freedoms, and I can't even say creeping, the frantic stampede of moving towards an authoritarian state in a terrifying way, and we're so wrapped up in so many big deals. There's some we're not really hearing about. So I think on that note, before I start screaming and shouting and everything else, it'd be really cool if I plugged in my headphones and said hello to our guest. It's Sarah Phillimore. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, good, I can hear you as well. It's worked. I'm going to do a little dance of happiness. It's great to see you again, Sarah. Of course, you joined us once before when we hosted a debate between yourself and trans activist Ashley Ruth. I think that's
Yep.
right. I think that's right. So that was some time ago. Obviously, tonight, there's no need for you to take anyone else's feelings into consideration. So you can just go at it. Now, obviously, we've spoken online quite often since then. And there's a link below for anyone, so a crowd justice link. And if you click on that, it's in the description. You'll be able to help Sarah what she's working on right now. And it is, in fact, and I'm going to ask you to explain it far better in just a moment, but that your permanent record can now include the most innocuous things as hate incidents. Fill us in.
Well, as you probably already know, Harry Miller's challenging the hate crimes guidance under Article 10, that has a chilling impact on his freedom of speech. That was knocked out at the first court hearing, but he's got an appeal date lined up in March. So that's bubbling away in the background. My challenge is different, however. My challenge is about data protection and Article 8 rights, because my lawyers have written a brilliant letter before action. They have said to Wiltshire, delete the recording about this woman, and they've said to the College of Policing, withdraw the guidance, do it by the 20th of November, or we'll see you in court. And that's because they say the hate crimes guidance, which was revised in October but didn't actually improve, in fact, got worse, I think, is incompatible with data protection law and my Article 8 rights, because it's recorded things about my personal sensitive data, my political views. It's recorded them on a false basis, I say, as the result of a malicious allegation. It did that in secret without telling me, and it wants to keep that material for up to 6 years. All of those things, my lawyers say, I think really convincingly, are just unlawful. So we'll see what happens. But obviously, the other scandal that we're dealing with is the sheer prohibitive expense of actually bringing a legal action in our court system. It's abundantly clear to me that access to justice is now beyond the reach of the ordinary person, which is why crowdfunding is so great. I think I'm about £5 short of what I need to actually go to court and make the application for permission for judicial review. So if anybody has got a fiver, any spare change down the back of the sofa, please do think donating to this, or if you don't like me, donate it to one of the other many legal actions which are ongoing.
Could I just jump in there a little? Because I think some people might not be entirely familiar, because what you've outlined there, some people might think, well, if it's hateful things, then they should be recorded. I'm not one of them, but some people might. But I think what's important, and we'll get into the greater situation soon, is the sort of things that are being recorded are available to people doing advanced sort of checks on you, aren't they? Security checks and such
Yeah.
like. But one of the hateful, terrible, shocking things that you said that is now recorded alongside your name was that your dog might be a Methodist.
Oh, no, sorry. That's not Wiltshire. That's South Yorkshire.
Oh,
And it
that's
wasn't
South
my
York.
dog. Yeah, I'm
Ah,
looking up hate criminal status in every county in the country.
you're a
After
bad woman.
Wiltshire, I was so angry, I went to Twitter and I urged my followers to report me. And a very kind gentleman did. He reported a tweet where I said, I think my cat might be a Methodist. He likes dreamies. Now, he was asked in all seriousness to explain why this was a hateful tweet, and he said, and I quote, Miss Phillimore clearly is hateful towards Methodists. She implies that they are wandering pests who crap in people's gardens. Now, South Yorkshire, with a straight face, have recorded me as a hate incident. Now, it's all very humorous, but remember why the police tell us they need to do this. They need to do this, they say, to stop people murdering black people, to stop the death of another Stephen Lawrence, because the people they're recording are so hateful and so dangerous, they need to keep an eye on us. So I have submitted a subject access request to South Yorks, and I want to know what crime they think I'm at risk of escalating to. Are they going to deploy extra armed officers to guard Methodist chapels should I come to visit that lovely part of the country post-lockdown? Just what the bloody hell are they playing at? Because this is a really interesting thing, isn't it? Look at me, middle-aged, left-leaning woman, pillar of society. I pay my taxes, I pick up my rubbish. I'm now angry, distrustful, and afraid of my own police force. So whatever the noble motives behind the hate crimes guidance, it's, shall we say, not perhaps having the desired effect.
See, I had to laugh before, because if I don't laugh, what I end up doing on this show is screaming. To me, I mean, obviously, there's this patent ridiculous aspect. You've been accused of being a Nazi, just a terrible bigot, a TERF, obviously a TERF, a shocking TERF, and all these things. But what alarms me, to be called those things on Twitter, it means nothing. The sort of people that we bump into, the trans activists, who I hasten to add are very rarely transsexuals. The trans activists, they come straight in, they attack your looks, they tell you you're ugly. I mean, why would they? I mean, I know you get it, I get it. Why they tell a 48-year-old married man about his looks? I've got a mirror. I'm so far past worrying about that sort of thing. But also, have you noticed they never say that you're fat? It's because they're terrified. They're terrified of being called out for fat shaming. That's what it is. They're actually terrified, because I've noticed that's one thing they rarely give me grief about. They tend to stick to the beard or the bald head. Because they're sensitive. They're sensitive. They've all got Asperger's according to their profiles. But what alarms me, on Twitter, yourself, it's just words. It rolls off. You give it back. It means nothing. But I believe a lot of this is being driven by these people reporting en masse. Now they've got a way to reach into your personal life and teach you a lesson for not actually being as authoritarian and Stasi-like as them. And we see this day in, day out. I know the people that are reporting you are not people that are concerned about your hate. They're just people that need you to shut up. Mm-hmm. And that's what this is. This is why we all need to be aware of it. That's why I urge everyone, if you can't donate, please just share the link. Share the link on your social profiles. Because what we're fighting here is not just the police making a ridiculous, utterly ridiculous decision. It's the fact that it's been weaponized.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, even if I don't get the money to go to court, even if I go to court and lose, it is worth it for conversations like this. Comments on my crowdfunder are along the lines of, I didn't know this was happening, or I can't put my name because somebody from work might read it. I mean, those are two really stunningly worrying comments to read in a supposed healthy, secular democracy in 2020, that people are either oblivious to what's being done under their nose or too afraid to talk about it. So I absolutely agree with what you say. The person who reported me to Wiltshire went through my tweets from 2017. They used advanced search. It's so obvious because the screenshots I've been sent. Oh, and by the way, if anyone wants to see the screenshots, because remember, I've been accused of religiously aggravated and transphobic hate. So if anyone's worried about that, Fair Cop have just put my case study up on their website, and you'll find there a link to the 12 pages of tweets that Wiltshire sent to me. So don't take my word for it. Go and read them. If you can find anything that makes you think I'm anti-Semitic or transphobic, let me know, because I don't think I am, and I'd be intrigued. And now I've lost the point I was making because I rambled on about something else. But anyway, people have got to talk about this. They've got to know, and they've got to be willing to stand up, because this is happening now. We
do see this across the board, and what's things is easy for people to do right now is if they perhaps don't agree with your politics, they'll say, well, tough. The way we said tough about Count Dankula, who did nothing wrong apart from a crap joke. The man can't get a job. He can't have a job. They put, every time he gets one, they hound him out. Lawrence Fox, obviously massive Nazi, because we know that, actors, mainstream actors, are often tremendously far-right leaning. Just been dropped by his agent, I believe, today. We're seeing lives being turned upside down to protect people who, in my experience, are tremendously abusive, disingenuous, and dangerous.
Yeah.
And, since I started being more vocal on Twitter and spoke to you, spoke to Graham Linehan and Dr. M and some of the others, I've been exposed to levels of deviousness and hatred that I've not seen. And I've been with some dark websites over the years. I see the abuse you get day in, day out. I get a little less because I'm a man. We do tend to get less, unless you're Graham Linehan, in which case you just get pilloried. But we are in a very, very dangerous place. And I truly, genuinely believe what you guys at We Are Fair Cop and you yourself are doing is hugely important. Anyone reading through it, set aside your politics. Not that politics have pretty much anything to do with any of the tweets that were reported. But don't look at that. Look at what's happening. Because if they can go after Sarah, fortunately, Sarah's someone with some reach, is a barrister herself, but we see so many people who are terrified. Literally terrified and don't have this. Sorry, Graham, yes.
We've had a few people in the comments ask for clarification on this in terms of DBS checks and going for work. If you could just sort of make it... We've had quite a lot of questions in that, like, is this going to come up on a DBS if you've been reported, etc.?
Yeah. Right. Well, I'm afraid the bad news is I can't give you a clear answer. I asked Wiltshire, this was a very specific ground of my complaint, who is going to see this? And they cannot tell me. It seems clear from the discussions that Mr. Justice Knowles had with the College of Policing in court with Harry Miller, that there is certainly a risk that they will be disclosed if you apply for a job where you are working with vulnerable people. So anything with children, anything caring for older people. It is apparently at the discretion of the chief constable whether or not they disclose it. So while I don't think it's automatic that it would come up on a DBS check, we have no guarantees, no reassurance, and that's not good enough. If I wanted to apply to be a judge, well, I think my chances are pretty much zero now, but presumably that would come up on such an application. And if my friendly anonymous Twitter account hadn't told me I'd been reported, I would not have known. So I think this is really serious. And all those people who are saying, well, it's just a recording on a police database, just get your heads out of the sand and think about what that means. The police are there to investigate crime. If this is shown to somebody on a DBS check, they will not see the word incident on this 12-page report. They will see the word hate. And remember, how it starts on the occurrence log for me is Sarah Phillimore, full name, full address, date of birth, work email, a barrister, comma, posting hate, full stop. So that's what a potential employer would see. Or say I've asked to be a trustee of a charity, which I have been asked to do several times. That's what they're going to see. So this isn't acceptable. And I think certainly on data protection grounds, this has got to succeed because there's no legitimate reason for recording this. And I say it's recorded on a false basis.
Well, obviously, it's not me you need to agree, but I couldn't agree more. I think this whole thing is patently fucking ridiculous. And we're embracing ridiculous levels of authoritarianism now with this, with the thought crime. The changing of language, the whole thing over COVID. You're not even allowed to think outside the narrative. Never mind behave. You're not allowed to think outside of it anymore. The change is accelerating in people. It's terrifying. Yeah. And, this really, I genuinely hope. I think you'll smash this first target. And then as it gets more traction, you'll smash the following ones you'll need to go to trial if it goes that far. Somebody needs something.
That's my hate dog trying to eat the cat. This is my little doggy who's now recorded for 6 years on Wiltshire police files. He's the dog who'll call me a Nazi for cheese. So yeah, he's in a complete basket at the moment. I'm sorry about that.
It's no, don't apologise. So I mean, guys, you really need to think about this. That saying a dog's a Nazi for cheese could stop you getting your job. I mean, really think about that. Now, we said earlier, certain groups of people, the TRAs, people like that, that there was at least one bit of good news. That came through someone that asked me not to link them directly to it, so I'll do it obliquely later on with a tweet. That a well-known litigant from the TRAs who has been abusing the system for quite some time, probably will sue me for saying that now, kind of got the comeuppance in court a little today. Now, I didn't understand all of it, but we're actually talking obviously about someone called Stephanie Hayden, who I believe is in the process of suing Graham Linehan for the second time and has sued many other people. Now, you when we had a brief chat about this earlier on the Twitter, you did explain to you about some of the things the judge could be looking at and why this is kind of good news. Could you spell that? Just let me enjoy hearing someone explain it to me.
Well, I'm slightly wary because I don't know how much of this is legitimately in the public domain. I read quite a lengthy post published on the Kiwi Farms website about what happened in court yesterday. And it was about, it's in terms of somebody applying for an injunction. So I'm slightly wary, but it's clearly in the public domain now, isn't it? Because I've read it on a publicly available website. What I understand to be happening is finally judges in the High Court have woken up to the fact that here is somebody who repeatedly makes applications for injunctions and damages against people. And he does this for free, claiming poverty, and is thus fee exempt on his applications. And it does look as though there might be a little bit of criminal collusion going on. So I'm really pleased to read that. And I hope what I read was accurate, because what I think we've seen with Stephanie Hayden is a misuse of the court process for financial gain. So let's keep our fingers crossed.
Yes, because I believe Stephanie Hayden tried to get an injunction against people disclosing their past, which is checkered and of distinct interest. So apparently, I'm not going to say allegedly because I've had it corroborated by a couple of sources now, but apparently the judge has pretty much said you've not got a hope in hell of that happening, and it should be said in court what you've done. The judge wants to know how many people Stephanie Hayden's taken. It's got everything, and I think this is marvellous because Stephanie Hayden has made a lot of people's lives very, very difficult. Now, obviously,
I was just saying it's going to be part and parcel of this difficulty that a certain group of society have become literally untouchable. And we've seen exactly what happens. And this always happens. Whenever you give people that kind of power, they will misuse it. And that's what we're looking at now. So I really, really hope there's going to be some clarity now, and the court's going to look quite carefully about what's being done. Because remember, these court cases cost us, the taxpayer, a lot of money just to get a High Court judge in a court for a day listening to this kind of nonsense. I mean, I'm all for rehabilitation of offenders. I quite understand the purpose behind that act. We shouldn't keep rubbing people's nose in their past. But when you're actually holding yourself out as some sort of vigilante for other people's failings, and I do think your record, your character becomes relevant. So I'll be watching this with great interest.
Oh, I think many of us will be watching this with great interest and tweeting ferociously should the opportunity arise if it goes through. It's just, I know that the worst thing, Stephanie Hayden blocked me about 2 years ago. Didn't even sue. I'm not even worth suing to Stephanie Hayden. Do you know how rejected I feel?
Well, that's low. That's really low.
I feel so. Just blocked me. I mean, who was the one person that threatened to sue me, Graham? Was it that Mike?
Stutchbury.
Mike Stutchbury, yeah. He threatened to sue me, and I think I spoke to Sarah about that at the time, and I invited him to do so. Nothing happened. Because the anti-Semitic person who wrote the blog about him is a barrister, so he very carefully words everything he ever writes. I mean, don't get me wrong, the guy that wrote it is horrible, horrible man. but it was all perfectly legal. And Mike Stoochbury also failed to sue me. I just can't get sued. I'm clearly impervious. Also, it would be quite pointless unless you enjoy taking installments. In which case, fill your boots. I'll pay you a few quid a week for the rest of my life.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, a lot of people don't have very much money, but if you sue 20 people and they give you £1,000 to make you go away, well, there you go. That's a tidy.
And we've seen that far too often. I think didn't Graham Linehan paid off? Sorry, settled, and a couple of other people have. And we see the same thing with Yaniv over in Canada that tortures people. There's a horrific abuse going on right now by people who proclaim themselves to be the marginalised victims.
If you create an environment where these people can flourish, they will flourish. It's just like any other virus, and that's what we've done. For all these noble and misguided reasons, for diversity and inclusion, we've actually created a grifter's charter in a very dangerous way, because they're claiming the moral high ground. And it's not just that you're standing up for your legal rights against them, but they are depriving you of all your fundamental human rights, your rights to speak, your right to challenge. I mean, I'm told I cannot say there's only two sexes, male and female. I'm told that is literal violence. I am encouraging the murder and the assault of trans people by saying so. I mean, that is what is said.
Did you see that company that's just started selling Harry Potter pajamas?
Oh, God. Yes.
I had to get on that because someone said your pajamas are killing trans kids. Some powerful pajamas.
They did some useless tweet about we support and love trans people. Look, you're a pajama selling company. I don't care what your views are on transitional sexuality. Sell pajamas.
Yeah.
You know, this is the state that we're in. Somebody complained in all seriousness and got them to apologise. I don't know if they got them to withdraw the stocks. Obviously, I'm sure the desire to make money is still quite powerful. But that's it. We've got this ridiculous kind of attempts at appeasement.
Must never apologise.
No, well, I don't. No, you must never appease. I think you should be prepared to apologise if you've hurt somebody and got something wrong. But appeasement, every single lesson of history from the Danegeld to the Second World War shows us that appeasement is a fool's strategy, because appeasement is something you do to bullies.
Yes.
And all you do by appeasing them is give them more power. So enough. End of appeasement. I will apologise if I overstep the mark and I hurt people, but I will never appease you. And you are going to have to, I'm afraid, listen to what I say that is true. And because I think all of us are just utterly fed up of this by now.
I'm going to admit that does make you a better person than me. I won't even apologise.
You should. I don't think there's anything to be proud of in being somebody who won't ever admit they're wrong. I don't think that's something.
Oh no, if I am actually wrong, but as we know that happens so rarely, it's impossible.
This whole thing is going to collapse. It has to. It is unsustainable. So I think our job is to hurry that up and limit the damage it's going to do when it collapses. That's what I see our role as.
To actually look after as well the transsexual people whose moral authority all these people are glomming off. Yeah. You know, because when you talk to people about trans, people think of people like Debbie Hayton and, you know, people getting on with their lives, trying to live the best life, not trying to stomp over everybody else. That's who jumps to mind. They don't realise it's the baseball bat wielding blue-haired person.
Yeah. My first encounter with a trans person was Caroline Cossey, because when did her book come out, Tula, about her transition, which must have been in the 80s. I was just a teenager. And I remember seeing pictures of her in the book. She was a Bond girl, I think, at one point, while she still had a penis, but looked like a beautiful woman. And I remember thinking, but of course, you know, she ought to be able to live her life as she wishes. How could anyone deny her that? And of course, her big beef was, as with a lot of transsexuals, that same-sex marriage was not allowed. So we've done all that. We've junked all those outdated, tired prejudice. But it's just so sad that what we've ushered in, instead of this glorious new age, we just ushered in an age of extreme hypocrisy and prejudice. It's so
but
sad.
Stonewall need to keep the money coming in.
Well, exactly.
So they have to ban it. But it is worth pointing out they're not getting it all their own way now, either with the new government legislation about outside parties being allowed to influence school. I believe we're at the beginning of something now. not the destruction of those people, just the fact of everyone's got to have a place in society, and theirs cannot be at the cost of everybody else's.
I think we are at the end of the beginning. The fight isn't over, not by a long way. But I hope that conversations like this give more and more people courage, and that people who donate to my crowdfunder feel they can do it in their real name. I think the tide is turning. We've just got to speed up, because it's done so much harm and damage, especially to children. And that's what got me motivated to join this fight, is what was happening to children. You know, as young as 4, being encouraged to transition, and social workers saying it's not a safeguarding issue, any parent who resists is part of the problem. All of that just struck me with awful fear. And that was really before I began to read up about it and realise that my fears were well founded. So I'm really looking forward to the judgment in Kira Bell's case, for example, that hopefully right before Christmas, because that's going to be huge and crucial. That, I hope, will be a massive nail in the coffin of this really harmful, destructive and dangerous ideology.
I think it has to be, you know, and it's just keeping going. When I'm asked, why do I talk about it so much, what's my interest? Well, partly is when I read about the kids there, even when you were talking about that, I get very, very angry. Also, I was seeing women being bullied for being women, which I didn't think we did anymore. You know, I thought we'd kind of chilled out on that. I'm disappointed. I've had my gammon years stolen from me. I should be a shocking sexist by now.
Well, I thought we were entering into a golden age of rationality. We got rid of the laws that criminalised homosexuality. We allowed gay people to marry, as of course we always should have done. I thought, hooray! My twilight years will be spent basking in the best that humanity has to offer. And it's like we're such a crap species. We immediately decided to do a U-turn and put pedal to metal.
Yeah, it's not good enough now. You got to let these. You got the basically blokes with beards and dresses into your spaces.
It's the resurgence, I'm afraid, of misogyny, which has clearly always been there, and I just didn't notice it while I was growing up. You know, it was kind of hidden. I think about my mum. She couldn't even get a washing machine on hire purchase without my dad's signature. That was in 1973 when I was a toddler. And I was thinking, oh, well, haven't we come far? Isn't that great? You know, poor old mum. And we haven't really moved at all, have we?
I think they've found a far better way of doing it now.
What? It's been
because they get to the victim. They get to be the victim now. They get to do all that and be the hard done to one.
It's brilliant.
I'm getting angry again now. I'm getting angry again. Sarah, we're going to listen. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. I hope we get to do this again. I know I'll be chatting with you on Twitter anyway, but I hope we get to do this again on this topic and other topics. And remember, guys, the link's in the description for the Crowd Justice. If you can't afford to give, please share. You know, sharing will help just as much. And if you can, stand tall without worrying too greatly, use your real name. Sarah, we'll keep mentioning the campaign and what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much.
And just thank you so much for coming and having a chat with us. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to doing it again.
Thank you very much for the platform. Just let me say good night from me and the hateful dog. This is Diego, the hate crime Nazi dog. Oh, good night, everybody.
Good night. There we go, Sarah Phillimore joining us there to tell us about things that just get my blood pressure climbing. Graham was looking at me, especially during the kid bit. You could probably see the Phil Mitchell filling up. But yeah, it really is genuinely hugely important what she's fighting here. It's not just for her record. You know, she has a career. She's going places. It's the fact that if no one stands, nothing will ever get done, and it will only get worse. It will not fix itself if nobody else stands up. And these guys are standing up with Harry and herself and others. Yes, Graham.
Yeah,